All right, welcome back, everyone. So today we're going to take a look at the current war bond offerings. Holy moly, Hermes! I lost the Hermes here. Put that in real quick. We're doing it live. Okay, this is not my first go, so I'm just going to go with this. So the Hermes is the first offering that's available. And again, I'm going to go ahead and just talk about the current offerings today. This isn't talking about how to do CCU or the CCU game. It's just I'm going to show you how to do a CCU example at the end here, utilizing an upcoming ship, and utilizing a current offering to kind of show you what you can save. But on top of that, it's also just going to allow you the ability to take a look at current offerings. So the Hermes is the first one up to bat here. It has been out for almost a month now, so this one could go away any day now. This isn't FOMO. If you've already got it, great. If you don't have it, that's fine. You don't have to get any of these. It's just trying to look at the relevant data that has been made available and what I've collected as far as data to try to help you make good decisions. This is like the stock market, I guess. I can't tell you any of this stuff is going to hold true. It's just using previous data to try to predict. This is all based off of just data to make the best decisions. But again, I can't promise any of this stuff. CIG does what they want and offers what they want. I'm just using historic data here to make the best decisions based off of historic trends. Hermes. The Raft's going to be the best offering here. You can see it does fairly well against its other 220 offerings, which is the Defender and the two Terrapins, which are also offered fairly frequently, especially the Medic has been offered 3 times since it's come out, which is nice. The Terrapin usually offered fairly amount throughout the year as well. But the Hermes obviously is available today, and that's going to pair well with the 400i. So if you don't already have the Hermes and you're interested in getting something like the 400i, picking up the Hermes be a good option because it's going to lead into the next option, which is the 400i. So yeah, at a $10 savings with a $10 cost, it's not really good. It's only you're doubling your money here, but at least it's better than nothing. Okay, 400i. So the 400i, picking obviously the Hermes because the Hermes is currently available, is the best option. You can see what its other competitors would be here. You could pick up one of these instead. So if you already have a Terrapin as an option or a Terrapin Medic as a war bond, then just stick with those and use those as the drop in here for your nearest preferred. Because again, all of these have the same savings. So if you have one of these, just use that instead. But if you want to buy one today, then the Hermes is the best option because it's currently available. You can see here it does fare well against its competitors. Some of the others here, both the Ares, the Ion and the Inferno, both only save you $15 instead of 20 for the same cost of 10. So that just shows, some war bonds are not as good as others, and that's what this data is just showing. Now they could offer at $10 cost, and they may save you 20 in the future. But for now, if you previously had bought these, you bought them with only a $15 savings. So yeah, again, Hermes is the best option here if you want the 400i. If you have a 260 war bond, you may want to skip this one. It just may not be worthwhile for you. But again, they're worthwhile to chain together. You can save. You're essentially saving $40 and for $20 if you want to work these together. The Hermes to the 400i. All right, moving on here, we do have the Touring. Actually, let's talk about the Mole first because it essentially is another low cost one. I just happen to add these at the end. So we have the Moth here. It's a new ship, obviously. It's an okay offering, not super great. You're saving $10, but that's if you pick something like the Sentinel. And the Sentinel and the Blade are the only two offers that you can pick because those are both $275. And neither one of those have had really good showings. If I look down here at the historic data for them, both of them had pretty weak offerings, but the Vanguard Sentinel has been slightly better. If you look at historic trends here, there's been one 2024 offering for the Sentinel, and then there were two 2023s. There's only one 2023 offering, and I think that was probably Alien Week for the Blade. So yeah, not great options here. Alternatively, you could pick a different ship. These are pretty close to the 260 that the Triage is currently available with. So when I show an example later, I'm going to actually use the Triage as the base instead of the Sentinel or the Blade. But again, if you want to save the most money, the Blade or the Sentinel is going to be the best go-to. And again, historically, the Sentinel has had more offerings than the Blade. All right, let's move on to the Touring. And also, again, this is just a weird range. This $315, $300 to $315. Well, it's actually $290 to $315. It's just a weird spot to be in. There's been better offerings with some of the new 350s, some of the stuff a lot of 350s now. The TAC also 375. So there's better spots to get through this range with better. But if you're looking for the target of a Moth, then this is a good pickup. Again, I would really go for the Moth if you're just interested in actually picking up the Moth. Sorry. So then we are at the 600i Touring. Nothing super fancy here, except for to note that I saw no other offerings in the CCU game. So if you go to the CCU game, you have the option to look at all ships, and I just did not see any other offerings. So it's possible this is the first time it's been available, or maybe I'm missing something. People will let me know in the comments, like, oh, I've seen it 100 times. Then that's fine. I just historically couldn't find any data to represent that this has been available before. Again, more FOMO, as the 600i Touring is not a super fancy ship, but if it's something you're interested in, if it's the target you're looking for, it could be a good option. Additionally, do be mindful, it could be paired pretty well with the Explorer currently. We'll look at that here in a minute, but it's a decent offering for $10. You're saving 25, so it's not terrible, but it's not, again, it's just not super great, and it's on a weird kind of spot. But to be mindful that it is under the 450 that the Ironclad is available for. So I do have an example. I'm using the Ironclad Assault instead because the price should be going up. We'll talk about that when I get to my example. But if you want to get to a ship like the Touring here, and you have an Ironclad and you can kind of play with that a bit, this 435 currently, if you have a Prowler to Ironclad for $10, then you could potentially use the Touring here to get to the Prowler. And then from there, you can then make the final jump. So it could be good if you want to get to the Ironclad. Again, if you want to get the Ironclad before it goes up for 450, assuming you currently have a war bond you can potentially buy back or something of that nature. Again, no other offerings so far, but it can be paired well for the next one, which is the 600i. So the 600i is a really good offering. This is a, like a ×6 multiplier. You're paying $5 from the only option, which is the Prowler. So you're going from the Prowler up to the, sorry, I forgot in the Touring to talk about the C2 versus Reclaimer. Historically, the C2 has offered more war bonds than the Reclaimer. That's really why I put the C2 in the Reclaimer, but I would put a preference towards the C2 if you want to get the Touring. Okay, sorry. So moving on, the 600i, again, as I mentioned before, you can only pick the Prowler, and the Prowler from the 440 up for only $5, you're going to be able to go up to the 475. So that's a good jump. You're spending $5 today to go up by $30. So that's why you're getting a 6 times multiplier. So definitely a good savings there if you're interested in that ship, but at 475, you're getting very high up in the range of, you're only spending $5, which is great. But 475, you start to get into ships that, there's just not a lot of room to go from up there. You have your Liberators, and it's a lot of concept ships. You have your Liberator, you have your M2s, which M2 recently had an offering. So you have some ships above that, but just be mindful that when you start to get up in that range, you start to get to the idea that, hey, I can't. So you don't want to stack maybe a bunch of these because these ships, it's hard to say how many more will go above this range. But I would say, I think the Ironclad and the Ironclad Assault, well, Ironclad Assault is already above this number, but I do think the Ironclad could potentially go above 475. It should. I don't see why it wouldn't. It doesn't make much. Right now, it's currently 450. So if you bought the Explorer and you have you hold on to this, just be mindful that for this $5, you can make a $30 jump here and you'll be at 475. I suspect the Ironclad will at least be $500. It could be a little bit more. So it'll either go up by $50. It could go up by a little bit less. I think it'll probably go up by a bit more. So anyways, that's my best guess there. And again, if you don't have a CCU for the Ironclad, this is going to be a good hold on for $5 to make good momentum towards that Ironclad once it comes out. You won't be able to use it now because the Ironclad's 450 currently, but it will allow you to buy the CCU once the Ironclad is finally released at its new released price, which we don't know what that price will be. The Carrack, another example of a very high on the end war bomb. It also has a pretty high cost, and it's a weird spot because it links to the whole D. This 550 happens to be the whole D, which I don't have here. That here. So it's the whole D is the only option at 450, and that's a concept ship. So is the whole D being worked on? Not that we're aware of. The whole C is already out, the A is out, and the B is being worked on. Does that mean the whole D is coming or the whole E? We have no idea. There's been no indications that those are coming. So it's highly likely that the whole D will still be down in price, but I think the whole D will go up over this price point. So don't think the whole D will stay here at the 550 range forever, but be mindful that you're holding on to this with a whole D, which is a concept ship that is meant to come out and have a higher price. Whereas these other, like the Prowler, is a fairly stable price. So yeah, it's okay. It's an okay offering for $10. You're getting a 4 times multiplier because you're saving $40. But for $10, just be mindful, you have to get this character, you have to make this chain before the whole D comes out. That's the only thing to kind of note. It's offered fairly frequently, so don't feel like you're missing out. It was offered 4 times in 2024. I think it was offered quite a few times in 2025 as well. So I've kind of reset this, but yeah. at least offered once in 2025. Got one thing, these two examples. So if you wanted to use these examples today, you can look at, these are offering, now this is if you use the Hermes as a base ship here, which is LTI. You don't have to use this option. You could spend less to do this, but this is a good example of saving 25% off of a particular ship. Do I recommend this? No, I wouldn't say that. But if you're interested in the 600i Explorer, this is a good way to show how powerful the war bonds can be and how you can save money overall by using these chained together. So if you had the Hermes as a base, obviously you have to sink quite a bit in the money in order to get the hold of this. You can then go up to the 400i, which is available today. You would then fill that gap with the triage, and then from there you can use store credit if you'd like to for that. You can go up to the Moth. So this is where you would usually use 375 here, but the Apollo triage is available today, so it's a good option for the Moth. Then from there, you would go to something like the Asgard. And again, you could use store credit here if you'd like. This is not ideal because you would rather do something, not an Asgard. You would rather do something like maybe attack or something. We had this marked as a 400, but if you don't have a 400 option here like the C2, like I kind of mentioned before, you got to do the best you can. And all of these are available today. So that's really the baseline here. Is the idea is you're able to go from the Hermes to the 600i today based off of everything offered, even with LTI, because again, the Hermes is LTI, and you would save 25%. So again, I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing this, but if you like the 600i and this is something you're interested in, it's something you could consider. The second example here is a little better one because this is taking something like I have the Intrepid on this account. So I use that as the LTI token. Use whatever ship you want, even if you have a starter or not. You're able to go up through the raft. The raft is available today. You can go up to the Hermes, which is the first war bond we would meet here. The 400i, which links wells with the Hermes. So these are both war bond offerings, saving you quite a bit of money and jumping the extra $20 that you're saving. Well, actually, you're jumping $40 technically, but you're still spending 20. You're then going to go to the triage like I showed in the previous example for the Moth. So you're not making the best jump here, but it is available today, and it's a chance you could use, and you could use store credit here. You can also use store credit for the raft here if you'd like. Then from there, you would go from the Moth to the C2. This is where it's a little sketchy because, again, if I were doing this properly, I would probably show the Asgard in here instead of using the Touring. It just happens to be I held on to this. This is what I would hold on to. And be mindful, too, that you can't currently get the Ironclad Assault. The reason I chose the Ironclad Assault is because it's over the 600i price point. It's currently at the 535, and I think that's more reasonable what the Ironclad will be. I think the Ironclad will be at least 500. That's my best guess. I don't have any way to confirm that, but that's my best guess. It would probably be over 500 or at least 500. People will let me know in the comments down below if you think I'm crazy, but more than likely it will release at $500. So what you would do is you would sit on the 600i example like here, but then the day that the Ironclad comes out, you would then pick up the Ironclad or the Ironclad Assault at that release price and just pay the difference between these two to ultimately save. You can get an idea, if the Ironclad comes out at this price, like the Ironclad Assault, you're saving almost 20% as well, 25%. So it's 23 currently, but we don't know what the end price will be here. So if this comes down at all, which again, if it's released at 500, then you're going to save even more because you already have a good baseline for the 600i that you're using as the basis. Anyways, I hope this was helpful for y'all. I appreciate those taking time to subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.